Keeper of the Light, or KOTL, is one of the most fun heroes you can play. If you're someone who enjoys enabling your team, then look no further. KOTL is literally steroids for your allies. This video is an in-depth guide of his abilities, skill builds, advanced mechanics, and talents. I've added timestamps for every topic, so that you can skip to the sections that interest you. This is the first part of the KOTL guide, and the following parts will cover his itemization, hero combos, and gameplay tips based on pro matches. KOTL is an intelligence hero with relatively low attack damage, but high movement speed at 320, putting him in the third highest bracket for movement speed. His innate is Special Reserve. With this, he cannot go below 75 mana. Anti-Mage and Invoker cannot burn your mana to 0. This means that you will always have enough mana to TP. Not many items cost 75 mana. For KOTL, there are only a few items that cost 75 mana and also make sense for him. The main ones are Pavis, BKB, and Shadowblade. This means that you will always have enough mana to BKB, TP, and Shadowblade. I thought that this innate was the worst in the game, but after paying attention to it, I realized that it isn't as bad as it sounds. All of your spells have a really high mana cost that keep increasing as you level them up. In the early stages of the game, if you're using Chakra Magic on your teammate, then you will run out of mana very fast. I'll give you a scenario that explains this well. If I have 150 mana but I want to cast both my spells, if I use my Chakra Magic first, then I won't have enough mana. But if I cast my Illuminate first and then my Chakra Magic, I will have enough mana for both. This is because if I use Illuminate when I have exactly 175 mana, only 100 mana is used and 75 mana is refunded back because of his innate. In short, when you have low mana, the order in which you use your items and spells matter. For you to actually maximize this, you need to buy a lot of mana regen items so that you can keep using the 75 free mana threshold. This is quite impractical, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Illuminate is your main damage spell. Illuminate is a channeling spell that can be cancelled early by releasing the Illuminate. It deals more damage based on how long it is channeled, and stunning KOTL causes him to release his Illuminate. At max level, this does 500 damage in a large AoE, making KOTL excellent at pushing waves and defending the high ground. Illuminate also gives vision based on how long you channel it for. Abuse this to check high ground warding spots instead of wasting sentries. Another tip for landing Illuminate is to take your surroundings and the angle at which you are using your spell into consideration. For example, at this angle, you have a very small window to hit your enemy. But at this angle, you have a much larger window. Therefore, in teamfights and skirmishes, move for 1 to 2 seconds until you get a better angle and then use your spell. This makes it so that the enemy is forced to take damage from your team if they choose to dodge or illuminate. Choke points and tree lines are your friends. Try to look for them so that the enemies cannot dodge or illuminate. Blinding Light. Blinding Light applies a 45% miss chance on the enemies affected and pushes heroes away from the center of the circle. To push an enemy towards you, you have to run really close and click in front of them. All units are pushed 400 units away, regardless of how close they are to the center of the spell. Units affected by the knockback will destroy any trees that they hit on the way. This allows you to break Monkey King's tree or Hoodwink's bushwhack with a well-placed Blinding Light. This spell also interrupts other movement spells like Techie's Launch Off, Phoenix Dive, or Timber's Timber Chain. So make sure to save your Blinding Light to interrupt enemies when they're using their movement spell. One useful mechanic to know is Blinding Light's interaction with Primal Beast's Onslaught. You don't need to wait till Primal Beast is in motion to cancel his charge. Blinding Light will interrupt his charge even when he is channeling. Chakra Magic. Chakra Magic restores mana to an ally and reduces the cooldowns of all their basic spells by a fixed amount. When targeting yourself, you get 30% extra mana and 30% extra cooldown reduction, which at level 4 is roughly 2 extra seconds of reduction. Chakra Magic does not reduce the cooldown of Chakra Magic when self-casting. At level 4, this spell reduces cooldowns by 6 seconds. This is the core of KOTL and what makes him so strong. This one spell warrants an entire PPT filled with all the possibilities of Chakra Magic combos. Since Chakra Magic reduces all basic abilities by a fixed amount, there are two combo styles: low cooldown versus high cooldown. The first one is synergizing with heroes that have several low cooldown spells. Bristleback is a classic option. Tiny and Ember are two other great options as well. The other style is synergizing with heroes that have ultimate-like abilities as their basic spell. Take Terrorblade for example. Metamorphosis has a longer cooldown than most ultimates and is the deciding factor as to when Terrorblade wants to fight. By casting Chakra Magic on him off cooldown, you reduce the window in which he cannot fight. With the Recall Facet, KOTL can recall an ally to him, which casts Chakra Magic on them. I'll talk about this in detail soon, but basically you can help your carry split push and farm two sides of the map, while also reducing his Metamorphosis cooldown. In addition to this, you also reduce the cooldown of his Conjure Image, which effectively increases his damage output and farming speed. Another example is Undying and his Tombstone. Tombstone has a cooldown of 80 seconds and lasts for 30 seconds. With Chakra Magic, you reduce this downtime and also give him double decay and double soul rip, as both these abilities have a cooldown that's less than 6 seconds. In theory, Undying and KOTL are a match made in heaven, since together they have infinite sustain. I highly recommend trying this combo out, especially with Undying Axe. When playing with Lone Druid, he can play very aggressively with his bear, since you can very quickly give him a new one. Omniknight and KOTL is also a great combo, since you reduce the cooldown of his Repel, which is a long CD, and also give him a double Hammer of Purity, which is pure damage. Special mention: there are several Aghanim Scepters and Shards that upgrade the basic spells of certain heroes, hence making your Chakra Magic even more potent. Juggernaut is a great example of this. You keep reducing the cooldown of his Swift Slash, and at the same time, you lower the cooldown of his Spin. Other examples are Tidehunter with Ags, which makes him a spitting machine, and Willow carry, providing her with infinite shadow realms and making her unkillable. KOTL's ultimate is Spirit Form. In this form, he gets bonus movement speed, cast range, and also upgrades his Illuminate, allowing his spirit to channel the spell at the location casted. When you use Illuminate in your Spirit Form, enemy stuns will not cancel your channeling, but they will prevent you from releasing the Illuminate early. In Spirit Form, you will also heal allies for 70% of the damage done based on your channel time. Depending on the facet that you select, you will have access to either Recall or Solar Bind. Solar Bind reduces the target's magic resistance upon cast and increasingly slows the enemy if they move. Remember that Chakra Magic affects this spell as well, so try to plan so that you use your Chakra Magic on yourself after you have used Solar Bind. Since Solar Bind lasts 6 seconds and has a cooldown of 12 seconds, you can have the second Solar Bind ready by the time the first one wears off. Recall Facet. There's a lot of information packed into this one spell, so let me break it down. Recall can either teleport your ally to you, or when all casted, it will teleport you to the ally you click on. Whoever is teleporting gets a movement speed buff, and if they take no player-based damage, or damage from Roshan, then they will successfully complete the recall with Chakra Magic being cast on them. So if you cast Recall normally on an ally, they will get a Chakra Magic buff. But if you all cast Recall, then you will teleport to the ally and get the Chakra Magic buff. Recall gives a movement speed buff to the hero that it is cast on, which will not be lost even if they take damage. If the recall is successful, then both the ally selected and KOTL will get the same movement speed buff for 5 seconds. This movement speed buff is actually very significant, as it goes to up to 20% movement speed at level 3. So you should always use this spell on allies that are fleeing to help them escape. Please note that a successful recall will interrupt channeling spells like Black Hole, so keep that in mind. KOTL's Aghanim Shard grants him 2 charges of either Solar Bind or Recall, based on the facet that is selected. It also increases the healing from 70% to 100% of the Illuminate damage dealt during Spirit Form. You can cast 2 recalls on the same target and at the same time. If they take no player damage, then they will teleport twice and get 2 Chakra Magic buffs in short succession. An important mechanic to know is that if you recall yourself to an ally, then you will reduce the cooldown of your recall. This reduces the downtime of recall when self-recalling. This facet opens up the option for an impractical, but still, really cool healing strat that you can pull off with Holy Locket and your shard. It's hard to give the cooldown reduction from recall to an ally, since they can very easily take damage. But if you recall yourself to a backline ally during fights, then you can benefit from the cooldown reduction and use more Illuminates. Your shard increases your healing to 100% and gives you 2 charges of recall, which lets you chain Illuminates with almost no cooldown. Make sure to cast Recall first, then Illuminate, and Chakra last. This is so that the Chakra magic reduces the cooldown of your Recall and your Illuminate, and when the Recall completes, it reduces the cooldown of your Illuminate and your Recall. This gets even better at level 18, and if you get Octarine Core, but those are luxury. I know that this is harder to pull off, but it is still a cool idea that you can try out. The skill cap for this facet is very high, but it relies on having a party member that you can communicate with. In theory, the recall facet lets your carry farm 2 sides of the map, or farm in very safe locations, and still join the fights if required. Another play that you can make with the recall facet and your shard is recalling yourself to an ally that gets gone on, and after this, immediately recalling another ally to join you. This allows you to provide backup of 2 heroes anywhere on the map almost immediately. However, the Solarbind facet is more consistent as it lets you contribute to fights and pickoffs instead of just relying on your teammates to deal damage. Solarbind at level 3 also reduces magic resistance by a whopping 40%, and with Shard, you can get 2 charges of this. The only other spell that reduces more magic resistance is Pugna's Decrepify at 50%, but it prevents your team from doing physical damage to the enemy. Willow Wisp. This is KOTL's Aghanim Scepter, which creates a ball of light that pulls enemies towards the center in pulses, dealing 85 damage per pulse. Contrary to what you think, this spell does not interrupt any form of channeling. Players can keep attacking, teleport, or channel their abilities without this spell affecting it. It also does not interrupt movement abilities like Magnus Skewer or Techie's Jump. Enemies can destroy the Will-O-Wisp with 7 hits. This does not give any bounty when destroyed. Keep in mind that heroes that have Solar Bind cast on them will lose movement speed when they are pulled towards the Will-O-Wisp. So casting Solar Bind before a pulse will guarantee a movement speed slow. Because Illuminate has such a high cast range, it can be tempting to use it from far and then slow the target with Solar Bind. This is risky as good players will have plenty of time to dodge the Illuminate. Even after using Solar Bind first, there is a chance that they can dodge your Illuminate. A simple tip is to first cast Solar Bind on the target, run closer to them, and then cast Illuminate. This reduces the travel time for your spell and lets you get maximum damage. Unless they have a movement spell, the enemies cannot escape from this. Blinding Light does allow you to knock them into the blast, but enemies might stun you if you try to get too close, or even if you succeed, you might push them towards their base. However, this isn't a rule as Dota is full of exceptions. If your allies have stuns, and you know they will be locked down, then channeling Illuminate first is good. Before the first night, try to have a sentry and observer ready. Thanks to the reduced vision, it becomes very hard for enemies to keep track of where you are, and easier for you to hide in the tree lines to channel your Illuminate without them expecting it. If you remove their vision and plant an observer of your own, you can keep track of your enemies and also check to see where they are placing their vision so that you can reward it. If you want to push out the lane at early levels, securing the range creep is very important. If you illuminate first and then try to secure the last hit, then the enemy has a window where they can deny it. Instead, if you hit the range creep before casting Illuminate, then they have no scope of denying it. At level 1, this is about 3 hits, but the number of hits reduced when you get a few levels or items. Often, There will be situations where the enemy core is under their tower and trying to last hit the wave. In this scenario, you can channel Illuminate to force him to either lose HP or lose last hits. Just remember to aim your Illuminate in the center, as this tower choke point leaves very little room to escape. Illuminate also makes you the king of contesting pulls, because you have the highest nuke damage in the game, and you can channel the spell from far. So if the enemy is pulling either camp, try to steal the last hit with your nuke. The slow from Blood Grenade is a very cheap and effective item, which lets you land your Illuminate or push enemies back with Blinding Light in clutch situations. So it's a good idea to pick one of these up. Now that we have gone over KOTL's entire kit, we can understand his ideal playstyle and strengths. KOTL excels at putting high pressure on the enemy, since you can keep providing mana and health to your team, keeping them always ready to fight. For the traditional support build, he relies heavily on his allies to be effective, but when played correctly, can feel completely broken. The skill build for KOTL depends a lot on the game state and your draft. If you have a mid or offlaner that wants to fight constantly, then getting more points in Chakra Magic is useful. On the other hand, if your team lacks wave clear, then maxing Illuminate will help push out the lanes faster. Maxing Illuminate will also increase the healing you do in teamfights, so putting points in this is generally always valuable. I usually only get 1 point in Blinding Light, since this is useful to stop the enemy from going on you or your ally. I would only suggest getting more points in Blinding Light if you aim to be very aggressive in the lane. The main advantage of high points is the additional cast range you get, allowing you to push enemies towards you more easily. This, however, is risky, because outside of laning or team fighting, this spell does not help you farm or help your team as effectively as your Illuminate or Chakra Magic would. Talents. At level 10, you can choose between Illuminate cooldown or Blinding Light Mischance. If you want more damage and healing, then the Illuminate cooldown allows you to use 2 Illuminates with Chakra Magic and have no cooldown between them. On the other hand, if there are multiple physical damage cores on the enemy team, or cores that don't like buying Monkey King bar, then take the Mischance talent. At level 15, the plus 90 Blinding Light damage really helps when you're pushing waves, allowing you to clear waves with a simple Blinding Light and Illuminate combo. If you have cores that benefit well from your Chakra Magic, and you want to go a more fighting-centric route, then the Chakra Magic CD reduction is a good option. At level 20, I usually take the 200 mana for Chakra Magic, because I usually already have movement speed items, and I'm near the movement speed cap already. This is also very useful when you have a Medusa or Storm in your team. The Chakra Magic talent gives you even more mana since it's more effective on you. If you take this and use Chakra Magic on yourself, you get an extra 60 mana, since you get 30% more mana if Chakra Magic is used on KOTL himself. This means that at level 4 with the 20 talent, you give yourself 500 plus 150 mana, which is 650 mana. It also helps when you are against an anti-mage. If you time this correctly, you will significantly reduce the damage that he deals with his mana void. If you feel like you don't need the extra mana, then you can go for the 10% additional movement speed in spirit form. KOTL's level 25, Chakra Magic applies a strong Dispel, is insanely good for the late game, especially because you have such a high cast range in your kit. I usually always go for this and save my cores from Hexes, Abyssal Blades, or any other stuns. I would only go the extra Illuminate damage if I wanted more damage and heals in teamfights, or if I'm against Mega Creeps and my team lacks wave clear. With this, I must leave you, but I'm going to create a poll so that you can decide which section comes out next. Lastly, I just wanted to thank everyone for all the feedback and comments you guys have put for my Treant Protector video. Many of you have posted mechanics and suggestions on Reddit and on YouTube that I found really helpful. As always, if you have any feedback, suggestions, or mechanics, please let me know, and I'll see you soon.